Hello, welcome to this edition of Real Life. I'm your host, Nicole Sheppard, and tonight my guests are Mid-City residents concerned about the BioDistrict relative to residential, the residential component. I think that when I talk about the BioDistrict, and I talk about it a lot, I'm only focusing on the medical aspect of it. And so when we talk about what type of employment opportunities are going to be available for people in the city, I'm really concerned with our school system and how they're really training children and preparing children for jobs other than housekeeping. And that really concerns me a whole lot, because I don't want to see so many employment opportunities available and then majority of the black children are doing housekeeping or some type of janitorial service in that corridor. So that's been my focus, that's been my concern. So I applaud you guys for your efforts, but I want to know your concerns so that way my viewers can know them also. Lily, I'll start with you.
Okay. I'm Lily LaGardrier, and I'm chair of Mid-City's BioDistrict Committee. And we started working on this because a lot of people in my neighborhood didn't know what was the BioDistrict, and they certainly didn't know that they were in the BioDistrict, and the state sort of had, in a way, taken over their neighborhood. It happened before Katrina, and then after Katrina, everybody's busy rebuilding and planning and recovering, and one day they look up and they're like, there's a separate planning process for the BioDistrict, and it's like, well, when did we get to be part of the BioDistrict? People didn't come out for the planning process. People didn't really participate in shaping what felt to many people what was an already preformed agenda. And in response to your concerns about education and employment opportunities, what we perceived early on was that there seemed to be a real disconnect between plans that consultants hired for $1 million contract by the BioDistrict, plans that they developed and supposedly vetted with the public, but it was really not an engaged public process. They were ignorant of, they didn't seem to be aware of schools that we already had in the community. There are components of this BioDistrict that focus on allied health training, which in theory would give opportunities to kids in New Orleans, would provide futures. There is an agreement, a Senate resolution that provides for mobile training facilities inside the BioDistrict and in the neighborhoods surrounding the BioDistrict, again, to provide training opportunities. Personally, I have not seen anything that is a real commitment to training and educating our people and our kids. The biggest concern, I think, again, in my neighborhood, is that what we will see is displacement. Everything the BioDistrict has put together is, great if you're interested in office parks, but the problem is we have a city and we have a culture in the city, and it's not an office park culture. And the BioDistrict wants to create and control an environment where professionals and highly educated people will come and live and work and shop and sleep in the BioDistrict, never have to leave. But what does that do to the neighborhoods that already comprise inner city New Orleans?
Well, I haven't seen the educational component of it. As far as what's really going on now, what steps have been taken to embrace some of the students. I mean, we have a high crime problem here. People are talking about, we're so concerned about crime. One of the things that I've said on the show, and I've brought leaders from all over the city and the state and some different facets of the country to talk about crime. And when we have this dialogue, one of the major things that we always kind of result to is socioeconomics. So if we have this, whether it's the residential component or the medical component, to become an RN, there's training. So if students attend Delgado, it's still a three-year process. They have prerequisites, and then there's other things that they have to do before they get into the nursing. If they decide to be an LPN, you're looking at 18 months to 2.5 years, because they also have these requirements. So my concern is, when do we see a real push? Where's the outreach to our inner city kids and to these schools saying, hey, we want to start working with you guys, and then put it into action? Because in the city, I'm sure a lot of dialogue. We have a lot of a dialogue, and we pay people millions of dollars to come in and theorize, and so we have all of this theory, but at the end of the day, we're the victims of crime.
Absolutely.
Either directly or indirectly, and so that's what I've been focused on. So I always appreciate the dialogue with you all, because I understand your frustration, and then I also understand your concern, because you're saying that we have to be really inclusive. In New Orleans, we're a small city in comparison to some of our neighborhoods, and so we need to be more inclusive, and we need to educate people, and we need to go out and reach more. Reverend Jordan.
And I think basically when you speak of BioDistrict coming into the neighborhoods, one of the things that I'm kind of worried about is, even if you're not directly into BioDistrict boundaries, they can annex you in at any given time. So it's like we really don't have an open dialogue of what and why, or what would a community get, even if you annex. And do we have a right to say we don't want to be a part of it? When and at what time were the residents themselves consulted? And the legislature has already passed, so where do we go from here? That's my concern. I'm not against change, but at what cost? Destroying residents? I don't think that's fair. I think we can do it another way. I think, yes, we have crime. Yes, we have big problems with how our legislatures works. But I also think that we need to be inclusive. I think we need to let residents know what's going on and let them have a voice, for our future. If we're talking about a better New Orleans, a more modern New Orleans, a more educated New Orleans, then we need to include everybody, so everybody is on the same page.
Miles, do we need to have the BioDistrict as a subdivision of the state? Did that need to happen?
I don't believe so. The BioDistrict, one of the things is that, as Lily said, was that people do not realize that they're in the BioDistrict. This is a huge area. Basically, it stretches from downtown, the Central Business District, all the way to Carrollton Avenue, and from Earhart just beyond Canal Street. So it's a huge area. And when we've asked the BioDistrict representatives why do they include so many residential neighborhoods, they've not been able to give us an answer. And our concern is, when tying into your questions about crime, is that the solution that the brains behind the BioDistrict is that their solution to crime is to destroy New Orleans neighborhoods, and also is to gentrify the existing low-income neighborhoods. Rather than stabilizing those neighborhoods, the plan is to boost. And again, we all want our neighborhoods to improve, but we don't want them to be improved to the extent that it's exclusive. And basically, when you talk about gentrification of neighborhoods, it's basically changing the demographic, and then changing the demographic to a white demographic. And when you connect the dots between the renovation of Iberville housing project with the destruction of 70 acres of neighborhoods in the center of the city, included with another 1,500 acres of housing in the center of the city, and you ask, well, what are the steps that you've taken so far to stabilize those neighborhoods? What you've said is education, job training, and that type of method in terms of getting people involved in the BioDistrict. And we haven't seen or heard anything. But also is that they haven't engaged us. When they have engaged us, they said, what do you want? Well, we want our residential neighborhoods out of the BioDistrict. And they've said, no, that's not acceptable. Well, that's not engagement. But also in terms of, rather than in terms of education, is we have Warren Easton as a high school. Why don't you start with a high school right down the street from LSU and VA and start a math and science program, if that's really what you're interested in, because the cost of a high school science teacher, chemistry teacher, biology teacher, lab teacher, in terms of the impact that that would have overall in terms of creating a black middle class, which we need to increase, improving education, reducing crime, all of those things are already there. But what we do not see the BioDistrict doing is making any of those efforts or any of those inroads in Mid-City to actually stabilize our neighborhoods and improve the lives of the kids and leverage Mid-City to take advantage of the new jobs that the VA and the LSU has offered.
I just kind of feel like, you know, just me personally, and I'm guessing some of my viewers, it's just kind of like we all were sleeping. Everybody was asleep, and then all of a sudden we wake up and, you know, we have this, because, you know, I think about, you know, office locations, and I think about all the offices that's along Canal Street, and, you know, just things that we're used to and when I drive down, and I'm there almost every day, I don't even think about any component of the BioDistrict when I'm on Canal and Carrollton. I don't think about it at all.
Well, we have asked them, the leaders of the BioDistrict, to redraw the lines, is that you don't need these residential neighborhoods. The only reason you would need the residential neighborhoods is to tear more of them down, because they have no component of the BioDistrict to leverage that to make improvements to the BioDistrict. Focus on the commercial areas. Tulane Avenue is desperately in need of economic improvement, and we support that 100%. We support the high-paying jobs. Nobody is going to be opposed to that. But, you know, so often in life you see is that it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. And what we see is the BioDistrict doing everything wrong for our neighborhood and nothing right.
Reverend Jordan, how do we get more people to kind of pay attention? I know that, you know, we've talked about it. You guys have passed out flyers to educate people about it. What more can we do to really educate people about what's going on and get people active?
I think one of the things that wasn't done that should be done at this particular time is that we need to educate more people of what BioDistrict is and how it can be done without taking over and destroying neighborhoods. That's what I think we need to do. And once we do that, then when you get more people understanding, because it's like what you said, were we asleep when this happened? You know, did we just wake up one day and say, oh my goodness, look what has happened? But it had already happened then, you know, and then we had to become proactive then, you know. And that's what I think we need to do. And BioDistrict needs to take themselves out of the resident area and still do what they need to do. That's what needs to happen.
So have you talked to any of the legislators about this? Have you guys been able to meet with people? And so what are you getting when you talk to them?
I have not been able to touch bases with too many people concerning to the legislatures, but what I do know is that I've done my homework on what they can do in their last paper that they put out, how they can annex a community in, even if they were not in there in the beginning. That's a little bit too much power to destroy so many neighborhoods, you know. Sure, we want to do better, but it has to be done in a better way than just destroying. You know, destruction is not future. I can understand some things have to change, but we have to change it in a good way, you know, not in a way where it's destroying communities.
Okay, thanks so much. We're going to take a short break and return shortly. Thanks for watching this edition of Real Life. I'm your host, Nicole Sheppard. Stay tuned.
Jazz was created in Louisiana. It's reality, man. Letting people know how you feel. You can't talk about jazz without talking about Louis Armstrong. He's the beginning of it, the middle, and the end of it. I love French.